FK Tuning and Development. Well, I apologize for using the phone in this video, but for some reason my camera decided to tell me that it was overheating. I am not sure why or how, but I'm going to have to definitely maybe contact GoPro or take it back. This is a brand new GoPro Hero 10. It is like 75 degrees in my garage, and for some reason my camera overheated. So apologies ahead of time for that. Well, G30-770, G35-1050. Some of you that are astute to seeing things, you'll notice these are really close. If I were to take these exhaust housings, man, don't they look identical? Well, essentially, other than internal machining, the exhaust housings on a G35 and a G30 are identical. If you were to purchase a G35-900, the external dimensions are identical. So if you had a G30-900 and decided for some reason that you wanted the bigger G35 hot side and wanted to change into your current turbo kit, a G35-900 would bolt right up. However, the G35-1050, the compressor housing is different, and obviously the compressor wheel. Let's kind of look at something else though here that's not evident because I have the housing on. Let's take a look at the turbine wheel on both of these turbos and take some look at some of the differences. Oh man. Hold on, a little bit of a tight squeeze. There we go. There's some anti-seize on there. And that's kind of making a super tight seal there for the exhaust. I need to wipe some of that off. Now, very evidently, you can see right out the start that the G35-1050, the turbine wheel, not only, the dimensions don't seem that hugely different, but when you see them in person, they are very different as far as size goes between the G35 over here and the G30. Not only is the dimensions of the wheel wider, the spacing between the blades, the exit is larger, but the blade is also taller here. I suspect that the blade has become taller here for the aerodynamics of it, so that it can catch more exhaust flow but still move more air to help spool the turbo better. We'll see soon enough when it gets put on the car. I have to have a different wastegate actuator bracket made. And as I said earlier in the video, the only difference is the machining inside of this housing is machined larger. I did not put all this anti-seize on here. That was put on here before I got the turbo. All right, now on to putting this back on. Measurement wise, we can see that the difference, and as I said, it was just literally on the compressor side. If you want, it's the same dimensional. Let me flip them over. All right. Yeah, they're not light because unlike some of the other companies like companies like Pulsar who try to mimic a Garrett, if you pick up a Pulsar, it's like it weighs like half of what this weighs. Garrett has made some hefty materials when it comes down to the G series turbos. Now, as I said before, exactly the same. The center section is going to be the same position. So your coolant lines, your oil feed line, your oil return line, they're all going to go into the original position. The actual height difference, if I remember correctly, is somewhere around, so I should say width difference on the turbo is around 8 millimeter on the compressor side, and I believe it's about the same amount as far as the compressor housing that way. The compressor housing AR, to give you an idea how close these are, the G30-770 and the G30-900 use a 0.72 AR on the compressor side. The G35-1050 uses a 0.75. So that's a very minimalistic difference. But here's where the huge difference comes in. At least it's going to look a lot bigger here because I have a 770 and not a 900 versus a 1050. Let's take the cover off. A lot easier here because we're just dealing with a seal, a regular little rubber seal that seals this. Obviously, we cannot do that on the exhaust because it would just nuke it. Here's where it becomes a little bit more evident. Let me try to, so I can keep these in here. Let me put the same spot. Yeah, this is where it becomes massively different. This is rated at 770 is rated at least 71 pound-a-minute flow. If I remember correctly, the 1050s were rated around like 92 pounds a minute. The other thing is the G35-1050 on the compressor map, the maximum recommended pressure is a little bit higher on the 1050. They use the same bearing cartridge as well. While the center section is the same, the backing plate support material is a little different here. I don't know if that's going to come into play when it comes down to installing the fittings. I haven't measured exactly yet, but it looks like clearance is relatively close to the same. I can always just use a different fitting for the coolant, and that solves that problem. The compressor housings. When I did the measurements here, where the exit location of the turbo is, they're identical. So the difference being is this is 2.5 and this is 2 inch. But some of you, obviously you can notice this right away, is that this is machined much thinner. So while this is 2.5, the difference on the internal over here versus this is not a 1/2 inch. This is 1.6. Let me measure this real quick. Inches, 0 out, and give you the exact internal. This is 1.76 versus 1.96. Now, I know in one of my previous videos, I did mention that going to a larger than 2-inch charge pipe is a good idea, and it doesn't have to do with the fact that the piping the 2-inch, it's got to do with over the length of the pipe and the air speed becomes a restriction and making turns. Anytime air has to make a turn, that's where it becomes more restrictive versus in a straight line. I've seen vehicles, like a small 5.3 LS, by having an extra 90-degree bend, even though it's like a 3.5-inch inlet, that extra bend literally losing 15 horsepower on an NA, maybe 450 horsepower to 500 horsepower application. So any extra bend you have, going to a larger piping helps. And that's got obviously to do with this, with a G35-1050, we need a larger exit overall. The other nice thing is that this should be able to, provided you have a 2.5-inch elbow, as long as you kind of have the clearance of the AC compressor, this should fit right in there. It's going to be in the same height. The thing I kind of like, though, that's nice, is with this, when you put the coupler on, there's not a whole heck of a lot of room here, and this edge is not very pronounced. Although it works really well on the G35-1050, this is a much more pronounced edge, and I like the fact that the coupler can be pushed on a little bit further than just that short distance that you have here on the 770 and the 900. And I think that pretty much covers the differences between dimensionally between the G35-1050 and the G30-770. And I'll let you know after I have that bracket made and be working with Rampage Fabrication, as per, many of you would have expected, to get that bracket made and see exactly what differences are there, what will fit and what won't. And I'll keep you all posted soon. And obviously, it's going to be put on the car and tested. Will this be my daily setup? No, definitely not. I'm going to keep the G30-900 and use the downpipe on the G30-900 to travel to wherever I want, maybe do or don't want to go, and use it for more street, I'm going to use the G35-1050 for events only. So that's it. Don't forget, hit the subscribe. A lot of you just zip through and next video and don't subscribe. Just takes a second to hit the subscribe. It helps me out, it helps you out, because it enables me to bring you more content more often. Thank you again for tuning in. Y'all have a great day.